That means they're surviving, they're maintaining, they're doing their job, they're paying their bills. When the herald shows up, it changes the world for the hero. Getting by is no longer an option. It's no longer sufficient. It's no longer enough. So that forces the hero to take action, to go off into the world and do whatever they're going to do. Because almost every Greek story starts this way, they actually have a god for this. It's Hermes. Is the god of messengers, which a herald is a type of messenger. So that's how important and how vital this was to Greek stories. That they actually, said, okay, we're going to have a god for this guy, for this action. The herald can be positive, negative, or neutral. It can bring good news, it can bring bad news, it can just bring news. That somehow, but the key point is getting by is no longer sufficient.
Mercurial, like Mercury was the Latin name for the herald of the gods. What's his name? The guy that was real fast. The little wings on his.
That was Hermes.
Hermes.
Well, that's Greek. Yeah.
Hermes is the Greek, and Mercury was the Latin. But it was the same dude, I think.
Yeah. So, and news travels fast. So if a herald shows up at the hero's ordinary world and says, you are destined and profited to slay the evil emperor that's ruling your lands, guess what? The evil emperor, he's going to hear that news pretty soon too. So if the hero goes, whatever, and does nothing, well, the evil emperor's underlings, the threshold guardians, are going to show up and probably act as a herald during that time and force them out into the world. Sort of Chandra, or Shannara, Terry Brooks.
Sort of Shannara,
yeah. So Alanon shows up to Flick and Shay and says, hey, you're the half-son of this long-lost king. I need you to come with me. And they're like, no, we don't want to. And then the shadow being, the stalker, I forget what they call it in the book, it's been a while, shows up and starts hunting them. And that's the oh shit moment. That's when they're like, okay, yeah, we got to get out. This Alanon guy was right. We got to start our adventure. So a underling of the shadow could be a herald as well, as a negative herald. There's lots of ways to interact or incorporate and intertwine these different character types. Also, the herald can be an inner call. I'm tired of this town. I'm moving. I've done that before. Twice. I'm tired of Midland, Texas. I'm going to San Antonio. Lived in San Antonio for a year. Tired of San Antonio. I'm moving to Montana. So, and that was an inner call. That was a drive within myself that I had to follow.
That's actually a generational shift I learned in a Stika social study.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people are moving, so it's a good thing.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Any questions over the herald before I run off to shapeshifter? How much time do we have left on the recorder? I know I've been going for an hour already.
4 hours.
I'm not taking that time out.
Keep talking
real slow.
Right.
My next magic trip.
So, shapeshifter. The shapeshifter exists in the story to confuse, with guile. It both confuse the reader and the hero. And you don't want to confuse the reader to such an extreme where the reader goes, I don't know what, huh? I don't care. And they put the book down. But the shapeshifter's there to basically just misdirect, send the hero down the wrong path.
Add tension.
Yeah, bad intention. It's usually the opposite sex of the hero. It doesn't have to be. One of the key points is that the shapeshifter appears to change constantly from the hero's point of view. It may be clear to the reader, oh, don't trust that person. I kind of wish more of the Saturn group people were here because for Patrick's story with Jack and Neville, they're both, Jack's kind of a mentor, but he's not forthcoming enough to be considered a trustworthy mentor, so he's kind of a shapeshifter and a mentor. And we have conversations around the table about who we trust and who we don't.
Consensus is no one.
Yeah, consensus is no one. Not even Sam, not even the protagonist. Yeah. So, In this case, your point of view character is entirely unsure about the shapeshifter. They're fickle, they're two-faced, their changes are puzzling. You can expect people to change over time, but usually it's predictable, unless some traumatic event has caused the person to just snap and shift. Could be a love interest or a romantic partner. The ultimate shapeshifter example that I could come up with off the top of my head was Fatal Attraction, Glenn Close's character. Starts out from the lover, and at the very last scene is reaches down and grabs the ice pick, and movie's over. Or is that Fatal Attraction? So I'm thinking of, yeah. So this one character is shifting between lover to murderer towards the same guy. You just have no clue what's going on with her character.
The other wizard in Lord of the Rings.
Saruman?
Saruman, yeah.
Because in the beginning you're like, oh, he's so cute, and look, and
Right.
oh man, he's so wise, and then
Right.
he just...
And then he's corrupted by power and shapeshifts, absolutely.
Oh, Basic Instinct.
Yeah.
Basic Instinct.
Yeah, Basic Instinct.
Oh, God, I get those mixed up too.
Yeah. The loyalty and sincerity of the shapeshifters, always in question. Absolutely always, throughout the entire book. If you want to change the absolutely to usually, feel free to do that. If you want them to become trustworthy in the end because they've redeemed themselves or helped the hero in such a monumental way that the hero has no choice but to trust them, that's fine too.
So would Vader be a shapeshifter? Darth Vader?
In Jedi, in Return of the Jedi, yeah. Yeah, at the end. Because he redeemed himself by turning on the Emperor to save his son, yeah. Absolutely. So, Vader obviously is the shadow throughout the first movie and the second two as well. But he can take on roles of other archetypes as the story unfolds. So,
See,
keep
I
that in
see
mind.
Vader is more of a threshold guardian. Because he's not constantly changing, but he is turned into an ally.
That's actually probably better. In Return of the Jedi, yes. Yeah. But if you just take the episode 4, A New Hope, he's the shadow.
Yeah.
You know? But if you take the trilogy as a whole, the Emperor is the shadow and Vader is a recurring threshold guardian. So when I said you don't need to detail threshold guardians too much, if they're going to be recurring, if they're going to be a key theme, detail them. So. And the main function of a shapeshifter is to bring doubt and increase tension. So any questions over Threshold Guardian stuff before I move on to the next guy? Which is the Shadow. So, oddly enough, this is a phrasing from the book where it represents the energy of the dark side. I don't know if Vogler was thinking of Vader consciously or subconsciously when he wrote that, but it was such a good phrasing that I had to use it. So the Shadow is the main bad guy. He is your key antagonist for the hero. He's the home of inner monsters. He represents everything we don't like about ourselves. So take what you don't like about yourself, put it into the Shadow, and that will allow other people to identify with the character, because you can identify with positive traits and negative traits as well. And you don't want the Shadow to be sympathetic, per se, but he needs to be identifiable, if that makes sense. It provides a massive challenge to the hero. It must be a worthy opponent, so I underline that, because that is key. If the Shadow is too easily overcome, the hero looks weak. So the first climactic battle scene between good guy and bad guy in my book, I forget who said it, but somebody said, "Oh, your bad guy died like a punk." Oh shit! Okay, I gotta fix that. Because I wanted him to die, but not die like a punk. So that made my protagonist look weaker in comparison because of the method of expiration of the bad guy. So it creates conflict and brings out the best in the hero through a life-threatening situation. The hero's life must be in danger when they encounter this Shadow, if the Shadow wants them to be. So if the Shadow is in disguise and playing the role of a Threshold Guardian, just to kind of test and spy on the hero. That's going to appear like a life-threatening situation, but won't be one. But when that climactic battle comes around and it's truly the shadow in their true form against the hero in their true form, that's life-threatening. It almost always has to be written that way. Otherwise, your big climax is not going to be a rise and a drop. It's just going to be a flat. And it's going to leave the readers cold. They may finish your book because, near the end of the book, if I'm on page 250 out of 280 and I'm like, oh, that was kind of lame, I'll go ahead and read the last 30 pages. Then I probably won't pick up another book by that author. So, and we don't want that. We want them to buy every book that we ever publish and 3 copies of each.
So what about other genres where it wouldn't necessarily be a life-threatening situation, like romance or
Romance, it needs to be a chance of a major loss, losing the love of your life. So that's the life-threatening, like I said earlier, for the hero, they have to face some life-threatening situation. They have to die, they have to face death. Well, death can be symbolic of the death of his love life. Or in, like James Bond, it's high stakes with, actually I'll cover that in the stage of the hero's journey, but in a lot of Bond movies, they may vanquish the bad guy, the villain, but there's still some threat to the world out there. So their life-threatening situation is defusing the nuclear bomb while it's counting down from 6 to 5 to 4, and then click, you get the right wire and all that. So the shadow does need a touch of humanity or goodness, just to make them three-dimensional, but don't make them sympathetic, unless they're going to be redeemed at the end. And that should be a big surprise. I know when Vader stumbled to his feet and put the stump of his arm and his other hand on the Emperor and picked him up and hooked him down into the core of the what were they on, a Star Destroyer or whatever it was, I was shocked. I did not expect that. I expected him to stand up, draw his lightsaber in his offhand, and cut Luke Skywalker in half. So when you redeem your shadow, if you redeem your shadow, it really needs to come as a huge shock to the reader. But by adding a touch of humanity or goodness to them, it gives them a proper reasoning behind it. So it needs to be surprising but justified. If that makes sense. And the key point, shadows think of themselves as the hero. They think they're the good guys. They think that this is their story and they're doing the proper and right thing for whatever goal they're trying to accomplish. So when you're writing your backstory and your background and your notes on your shadow character, keep that in mind. Keep in mind what their motivation is. Flip to the hero section of the handout and apply that to the shadow to build him out, to build his backstory. Because the bad guys think they're the good guys. Hitler didn't think he was doing wrong by executing millions of Jews. He thought he was doing the right thing for his country. And sorry, but he was an evil bastard for doing it. But he thought he was the good guy for doing what he was doing. It's just all in your point of view, all in your mindset. So, any questions over shadows?
I've heard that every character should think of themselves as the hero of their own story.
True. I agree with that statement. But that's especially true for heroes and shadows.
Sure.
Because they're your two biggest, largest in life characters out there. An unwilling hero might not think of themselves as a hero until they make that switch to willing hero.
Just from the term shadow, does shadow mean that they're like the total opposite of the hero? I mean,
yeah, for the most part. If your hero is a white woman, doesn't mean the shadow has to be a black man. You don't have to go polar opposite kind of things. But yeah, they are diametrically opposed in goals. The hero wants this, and the shadow wants this, and they're coming to head.
Okay.
So,
Flip side of the coin.
okay.
yeah.
Voldemort and Harry Potter.
Okay.
So, allies. The hero needs somebody to travel with. It's just having a hero traveling alone doesn't present much in the way of good dialogue, good tension building, good action. It just, honestly, when I've read books about people traveling alone, the author has summarized like 2 weeks of travel in a paragraph because it's boring.